Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Agasicles from Gearworks.com and the E2KG Network channel on YouTube. And yes, I almost forgot that I was hosting. I was wrapped up with all the other buttons and switches. Welcome aboard for tonight's episode of Enough to Keep Going. This is episode number 53 of the weekly gamer experience discussion. So each week, the cast members of the E2KG Network, at least 3 of them on the games crew, get together and kick around in a fireside chat fashion what we've been playing, what is coming up next, and then one of us offers themselves up in sacrifice to the other co-hosts so that we can tell that person what game they must play for some period of time over the following 2 weeks.
Got a little dark there.
What's that?
Got a little dark there. Sacrifice. Wait a minute.
So that man that you hear on the mic right there is Mr. Osiris Prime. Prime, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. And like my title says, I did used to play PC games, as you can see.
Dude, oh, Freedom Force.
Yeah, Freedom Force.
That's one of my favorite.
Star Trek Voyager Elite Force. I think we were talking about that last week.
Yeah.
Aliens versus Predator. It's good.
Very cool. And the other man who's going to be on the mic over there is Mr. DBqHams. How are you doing, DB?
I'm doing pretty good. It definitely felt like a sacrifice this time in terms of the assignment. And I realized that I kind of bit off more than I probably should chew in terms of picking a humble bundle and trying to dive into it I even had an extra week, as Swiss pointed out. So yes, I was on the hotspot with assignment here for a variety of games.
Gotcha. Well, a segue is still a fork path that you have to go down to get back to your prime point. But let's not even do a segue, DB, and just go ahead and roll out with your report out on the humble bundle for the last 2 weeks.
I think I was already starting the segue, and then, oh well, that's okay. It wouldn't be the first time that we slaughtered a segue. So yes, so I had a humble bundle choice, and you guys assigned me the one with God Eater Burst, and Mafia 3, and Subterrane, and AER Memories of Old were the 4 big games out of the Humble Bundle from a few months ago. So it was a couple different choices on the Humble Bundle. And I'm just going to run through these relatively quickly, but I'll give you guys time to stop and ask questions after each one. I'm going to put them in an order of how much I think I have to say about them. So Subterrane, I spent an hour, a little over an hour playing it. And I actually really started to get into it initially. It was pretty tense. So Subterrane, it is a over-the-top survival game. Not over-the-top like all-out action, but over-the-top perspective. So it looks in that kind of pixel art-y Miami Heat type of aspect. You have the same type of, but it is very survival-y. And so, Prime, I had not played Ark. I had not really done a whole lot of survival stuff. Even Minecraft survival, I would never played a whole lot of. So this was a new concept to me, right? So within the first 10 minutes of playing, I needed to find a bathroom to relieve myself, my character technically, not myself. And then within another 20 minutes, I was reminded that I had to use the bathroom again because, it's human nature. And I had a food timer and water and stamina. So there were options to sleep. There was, I spent a lot of time kind of diving through some menus, trying to figure out how to equip different weapons. I could find a gun, but I didn't have any ammo, right? So I used a club. But at the same time, I've really enjoyed the experience. I say that I haven't really gone back to it because I've had too many games to assign, but I really did enjoy the survival. It was tense. So the story behind it is that you are a prisoner out on Mars, and you're going to be transferred, and something happens to the prison colony, and the power goes out, and you sneak out. Your door opens enough to get out, but you're kind of locked in. There's power issues. And then as you slowly go, there's some shadowy type of creatures, and you don't really know. And it actually puts a pretty good narrative together in terms of pulling off, logs from the computer. So you can invest in the narrative if you want to try to figure it out. You can just try to get the heck out of there if you want. It really had that. It was successful in creating that sense of I just wanted to escape. I even in a low res kind of pixely game, I definitely got the sense of there was the survival tension. I don't really know that I gravitate toward these types of survival games as some people might, but I enjoyed it. It was put together well, and I'll probably end up going back to it. But it's still I was glad I did it when I was not so sleepy because it kept my tension up. So let's say that it was not kind of a relaxing game as the other indie game on here, AER Memories of Old, was. So this is a very kind of chill game. It's got some stylized graphics. It's actually one I love this game. It turned out. I'm glad I had a chance to play it. Very positive. It's been on sale for like $6. It really reminds me of somewhere between like Journey and I got Breath of the Wild vibes of it as well. So you start off kind of Journey like you're shepherding your people, and you're in a sacred cavern, and you get a lantern that hasn't been lit for a long period of time, right? Generations. So you are the fabled one. And then you end up, that lantern allows you to see shadows or remnants of people throughout the world. And so you're exploring and you're looking for these little wisps, the little like fireflies or bubbles of light that would give you a hint that there's a clue there. There's a fragment of a memory, or there's something else there. And your real goal is you're getting into dungeons or temples, which serve kind of like a puzzle dungeony type of piece, and making your way through there. It's a really kind of cool stylized cloud world. Your player has the ability to turn into an eagle and fly. So your navigation and exploration really just opens up. And that I found it was a great contrast to Subterrane, where I was tense and knotted up. Being able to kind of just chill and fly around and explore with AER, yep, it was really enjoyable. So those are the two indie games, and the two kind of main studio games were God Eater and Mafia. But I wanted to stop and see if you guys had questions on either one of those.
So for Subterrane, so is it more of the survival aspect of gameplay, or is there like fighting and stuff like that? I mean, is it much?
So there's combat. It plays out, in that top-down Hotline Miami type of style, not nearly as fast. It's not frantic like Hotline Miami. Right. No, it ends up feeling very frantic because you're very fragile. I through the hour or so of play, I had maybe a couple different combat situations where I was fighting off both humans and creatures, and they were, it's awkward. Because you're kind of swinging with your fists, or if you're like me and forgot you equipped a gun but realized it didn't have any bullets, so you tried to shoot somebody and got beat up half the way through. Which was another interesting piece in terms of how it forces you to manage your health, and it decreases some of your stamina. So there is some combat. It's very much more in the survival mode in terms of a lot of inventory management and timer management around health and sleep and energy and stamina, while you're trying to explore a cavernous prison system and escape.
So I guess my big question is, so we all know what the Humble Bundle is, right? And at the risk of offending, that is not my intent, but when you presented these choices, my concern was like, I don't know how much I care about things that are in the Humble Bundle, because I don't do the Humble Bundle. So for various reasons, right? So I guess I feel like a lot of the games that are in the Humble Bundle are only marginally less expensive than they would already be for sale on Steam. And if I wanted them, I would have bought them on Steam. So I guess my big question is, between Subterranean and God Eater Burst, did any of them exceed your expectations in terms of, you know, and you only had a limited amount of time to play them, but are you planning on going back to any of those? And did either of those two exceed your expectations in terms of value for an indie game in the Humble Bundle?
So, first I'll say the indie games in the Humble Bundle, I kind of agree with you, right? In some ways, I've stopped buying things on Steam for indie games because they all eventually kind of trickle into the Humble Bundle. And so for $10, it ends up being a better economic deal if I'm willing to kind of wait on something. You know, and there have been certainly indie games that I've wanted to play that have made their way into the Humble Bundle, and it's been beneficial that way. So that part, the curation aspect of that, it works for me. And it also means that realistically, I end up stumbling across, you know, the Humble Bundle is 8 games, I think, usually. And there's probably 4, maybe in a good month, there's 5 that I really get interested in. Or at least want to try out. And it's led to me, you know, I never would have touched Subterranean. You know, it just wasn't a genre that I found would normally gravitate toward. But I had a lot more enjoyment out of it than I would. God Eater Burst God Eater Burst is it is the this is the other one you mentioned. So this is kind of that AA type of game, right? It's based on a PlayStation 2 franchise. It plays kind of like Monster Hunter World or Monster Hunter, but is a little more action-y, which actually I enjoyed. I mean, I've dabbled in Monster Hunter on the 3DS and Wii, but the action aspect of God Eater was a little bit more enjoyable because it kept the pace going. But it was, you know, the combat was kind of interesting because you've got a weapon that can transform to be both melee and range. So you've got some flexibility in your combat. You know, you're doing some things to break an enemy's defenses, and to stagger them, and then to head in for a kill. So the combat aspect of it, I actually enjoyed more than I thought, because I've never really been able to get into Monster Hunter, as we've talked about on other shows. So much so that I ended up on the Reddit thread for God Eater, trying to dissect and understand some of the combos and setups and different you know, different blades and weapon systems in terms of being able to peel back those layers and understand it a little bit more. I don't know that I was successful, but at least it interests me enough to go down that rabbit hole. The thing that really turned me off of God Eater is just the anime aspect of it all. I mean, it was very much some classic anime tropes, right down to, you know, a schoolgirl in a little skirt eating a hot dog and giggling. You know, that part was what ended up kind of turning me off from it.
Yeah, so did you have to spend as much time trying to get your head wrapped around what Mafia 3 was, and did you enjoy that one more? Because that's the one that I was...
Yeah.
This is why I voted for this bundle, because I wanted to hear about Mafia 3.
So I think the 2 games out of the 4 that I played, I mean, AER, I know that I'm going to go back to because of the kind of chill exploration of it, and it scratches that itch. And Mafia 3 hooked me from the beginning. So I remember you talking about this on a former podcast fall when it came out. I don't remember how far you got into it, but I ended up... Yeah,
I didn't actually play it, so I think I talked about it referentially because I had played the original Mafia and then hadn't gone back for the second one, and I was amazed because when I played Mafia, I was like one of the few people that I would ever like think somebody would speak to who had actually played it. I was amazed at like the more mainstream generic uptake of Mafia 3. So did you in playing it, did you experience or see, or could you kind of grasp what it was about that game that all of a sudden out of nowhere made people who hadn't played Mafia 1 and 2 suddenly like were singing the accolades of Mafia 3?
So it does a really good job of creating a world for you to be in a way that really sucked me and drew me in right from the beginning. Right, it creates a character You know, it's a biracial character in Louisiana in the late 60s, came back from Vietnam. You know, there's a lot of hooks there in terms of giving you an interesting protagonist, somebody who's going up against the Italian mob, you know, and working for the African American mob down there, you know, as he was a runner for it back before he went off to the army. You know, so it sets up a world that I really wanted to explore, so much so that when I did the traditional kind of open world thing of cruise around and play around with radio stations, I found myself trying to live within the bounds of that world, right? Like this was not Grand Theft Auto where I'm cruising around and smashing around, or at least not intentionally. Right? The controls. The one thing I did find is that the controls were maybe better suited. They're just they're not as smooth. You could tell it's an earlier game within this generation in terms of some 3D and the engine there. It's not, doesn't have that same type of level of polish as a Rockstar 3D world. So there's a little more clunk in the controls. But in terms of a world that invested me, it totally grabbed me. And so this is the one that I know that I'll be coming back to. You know, I don't know how far. I really want to keep playing it. You know, I think some of the things that it does with race relations and you know, kind of having that running as a narrative piece alongside the revenge story is really interesting. I know it goes some places. You know, I remember at the time mainstream gaming press talking about it. Sometimes it was successful, sometimes it wasn't. But I think the fact that it puts a player into that world, one, it's probably a little safer than something like Far Cry 5, where it's trying to treat it as a modern day piece, right? The ability to take it from a historical perspective maybe makes it a little more politically safe, but it also allows to hold a mirror up to some of the things that might have been experienced at that time. And so that part I think is one of the things that it does really successfully. You know, it's not, in some ways I found myself drawn into it more than Grand Theft Auto 5, in part because I was more interested in the world and the protagonist than Grand Theft Auto 5. And I had to hold back my Saints Row open world craziness ambitions to try to, you know, role play it a little bit further. So
yeah, kind of the whole setting, the historical setting, and the reasonable accurateness of it kind of doesn't lend itself to kind of being a goofball in the world, right? It's not cartoony. Was what I remember from Mafia. It felt like I was watching, like it felt like I was playing a role in The Godfather.
Yeah, and I think it's something that doesn't always happen in an open world game, right? That especially in these types of open world mob stories, you know, that often create the sandbox for us to just goof around in, right? It's the reason that Grand Theft Auto 5 online is as huge as it is. But no, you're right. I completely agree that you're playing a character rather than a fantasy, and so I think that's effective. And I'm glad that I had a chance to kind of pull up Mafia 3 and play it here. So yeah, I do think I'm going to come back to it. It came with some of the DLC, which I find interesting in terms of some of the historical settings of it, some of the missions. So overall, yeah, I think that of the four, I definitely am going to, Mafia 3 and AER were games that I probably, you know, AER was on my kind of indie game radar. And Mafia 3 was something that I was aware of, but never really, you know, I passed on it plenty of times in Steam sales. So, you know, I'm glad that this got me to kind of try it and experience it.
Yeah, I am too. I think these, you know, this is the thing that Humble Bundle does well, is that it, you know, it does expose and surface some games that may have otherwise been missed. And as deep as our backlogs are, we also all often talk about, you know, the games that we missed and swinging back around to participate in those. So anything else you want to talk about on your Humble Bundle experience?
Trying to remember what else were some of the smaller games in there, but I think I think the only other thing I want to say about kind of the Humble Bundle in general is one of the things that I did at the end of last year is I looked back through the Humble Bundle games that were in my library, and then I looked kind of over a lot of Game of the Year awards lists, and especially when it came to indie games, I realized that I had the vast majority that people were talking about. So over time, Humble kind of things trickled in and populated my playlist in places where I would have been scrambling at the end of the year to go back and look at some of those things.
Yeah, it's been a weird transition, right? Because when Humble Bundle first started out, to me, it was a little bit kind of like the Xbox Live, right? PlayStation Plus, right? It often brought unique gems to light of things that people had missed. But I feel like once because they were they acquired by
IGN, yeah.
IGN. It feels like once it went mass market and became regularly monthly, right? Because it didn't used to be as reliable, right? In terms of,
I think it's only been, this is its third year that the monthly was a thing.
Right.
It really did start off as it was kind of intermittent gaming bundles, right?
Yeah,
like these were the places where
once in a while, yeah.
Yep, I picked up things like Sword and Sorcery and Fez and a variety of small indie games that were wrapped up in a bundle and you were giving to a charity at the time. But now it's a whole store, that has its own seasonal sales and everything else. And I think the one other perk, not to get too much of a sales pitch here, but the one other piece that has been beneficial is that as a Humble Bundle subscriber, monthly subscriber, you get 10% off within the store at any point in time. So like picking up something from the Destiny 2 expansions, it was before sales happened that was the cheapest way that I was able to pick that up. And this month one of the games that I've had on my radar, A Hat in Time, which is kind of a 3D platformer game that came out earlier this year, is now going to be in the Humble Bundle for this coming month. So again, I end up getting a few games each month that makes the investment worthwhile, and it actually kind of keeps me on PC more than I might be otherwise.
Okay, cool.
So that's what so you guys gave me my assignment, but what have you been playing, Agasicles? You gave yourself an assignment this weekend. You were, you went down the Fortnite train, right?
Yeah. So as of late, I've had this. It's probably not foreign news to anyone, but I manage my life through task lists, including my free time. So I often have multiple lists running of that are structured so that my time is parsed across different activities, and I don't spend all my time doing one thing. And when it comes to gaming, so that I don't spend all my time on one system, although that is on a per device basis. So because I have more gaming because Windows is one platform and I have more than one gaming PC, I wind up spending a lot of my time, as it turns out, when I actually function by that paradigm on PC. And there's definitely been kind of a resurgence and a renaissance in that area over the last week. But I've also hit these points of convergence where, in conjunction with content creation tasks that I have for either the E2KG network or my own YouTube channel, Rounding Off Infinity, I've also hit certain assignments of things that I've been wanting to do as part of content creation. Or just research and investigation in things in gaming culture that I haven't directly experienced. One of those things is this blowing upage of of all these multiplayer games, right? We've talked on here, I've struggled since the end of the Xbox 360 era with really finding a multiplayer paradigm and path that it was convenient enough for me that I didn't feel that it was a bother. Fortnite might be. I complain so much about how every single time you go to buy a game, you've got to download the publisher's individual client. But I got to tell you, Epic Games, and I guess maybe even Blizzard to a certain extent, although Blizzard's games feel like a little more limited, although numerically they're probably the same amount. Epic's got a full, like, they have made like their own little microcosmic Xbox Live. It's got matchmaking, friending, messaging, yada yada yada. It feels weird and strange that every publisher on PC had to go off and do this, and I don't quite understand why when we have things like Discord, but whatever. Epic's has been one of my better experiences with one of those clients. So
and you can import, right, from Epic. I remember seeing that on the Epic launcher, that you could import your friends list from other places as well.
You can bring them over from Steam.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which I haven't done, but you can. So yes. So one of the things I've been wanting to do is play some of these hero shooters, massive multiplayer games. Paladins is on my list. Warframe is on my list, and I finally got around to playing Fortnite. And I guess if I call it unique, one of my differences in how I wanted to approach it was that I wanted to go in. I wanted to train basically myself on the systems and learn the systems of the game by playing PvE instead of PvP. Thank goodness. Like I can't express, I can't convey sufficiently the value of doing that. And like anybody who's diving into Fortnite who just jumps right into PvP, like that would make no sense to me. You can get into PvE, you can learn the basis of the systems, you can understand how to build, you can just get your keyboard, controls configured and everything, and then roll into PvP. Now, I was fortunate when I went into PvP. I played a duo round, and the guy that I got linked up with, unfortunately, it was fairly late at night. He was really cool, and I mean, he was still of it. It kind of surprises me and amazes me, and I guess maybe youth brings this, but it's a little amazing to me that some people actually have the perspective, like they find it incredulous that somebody is a PC gamer and hasn't played Fortnite and doesn't understand all the systems. So we had to work through that a little bit, but he was fairly accommodating about it, and he did teach me a lot, So yeah, so it was pretty cool. Both PvE and PvP were cool, and I'm seeing a lot of increased fervor in social media of people wanting to play the PvE modes. So I went into it at a cost, right? Because to access the PvE mode, that's I think like $60. I think they charge you the cost of a full game.
I think is it 40 for the basic buy-in, which is actually on sale this week for 20.
Okay. So I bought into the PvE, and then I think I went ahead and bought the battle pass because it wasn't really clear to me what the progression model was in PvP if you didn't have battle pass. But yeah, so I bought the battle pass, and then I think to buy like my initial set of like outfits or something like that, I went ahead and bought like whatever the minimum amount of V-Bucks that I needed to buy a few outfits and stuff. So definitely a thing where I need to keep a little scratch pad and remember how much I've spent in that game so that I can throttle that. But yeah, that was the gameplay is great. It's butter smooth. Online connectivity and netcode were great. I will say the progression model is the most complicated thing about it. There are about 4 or 5 different avenues of progression that some of which have vertices, between each other that you really have to understand. And when you're playing PvE and you're just by yourself, I spend as much time inventory managing in there and managing my upgrades. Like I was actually overwhelmed. Like because I bought the Founders Pack. I guess that's what they call the thing to get you into PvE. So I bought that. When you initially get into the game, they don't give you access to everything that you get in the Founders Pack. You get a couple things, but you really have to get through like the first mission, and then what happens is they're kind of in chapters, or they're little segments, like 4 steps per segment. And sometimes only one of those things is an actual in-game mission. Sometimes some of them are tasks, and some of them are tasks like upgrade a weapon, right? So you can kind of matriculate through them quickly. But the point is, when I got to that 4th thing, so I think on the first page, it's like a mission, 2 like in-menu tasks, and then a mission. When I came out of that 4th mission, you get all the rewards that you got that you actually earned in that mission. But then all your Founders Pack stuff comes in. I was literally overwhelmed. Like, the sheer length of the list of all the things that, like, got dumped on me at once, I was like, that was when I was like, stop. And that was about at the 45-minute point. I literally spent the next 45 minutes, and I broke that time up because I didn't do it all in one sitting. But actually, no, I take that back. I think I played PvE 3 hours. An hour and a half of it I spent managing my upgrades and trying to get my head wrapped around the progression system. So, but I had a great time. I cannot wait to play it on Nintendo Switch.
So lots of questions here. I mean, I as somebody who has only played Fortnite PvP Battle Royale only because one of my sons needed to run out of the room for something, and I took over a controller. So I understand the complexity of building, because it always perplexes me as I'm running around pulling up menus and trying to avoid shots at the same time. So when you're talking about progression systems, that's only in the Save the World mode. It's only in the PvE mode, correct? Because in the PvP mode, in the Battle Royale mode, everybody starts off even every match, and the progression is only cosmetic in terms of battle pass and things like that. So
I'm unable to articulate it right now because it's now been like a couple days since I played, but there is progression in a PvP. I can't remember exactly what it is, but
okay. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I know that there's levels, and so maybe I'm missing something in that as well. So my question, I do remember some of other podcasts back last August talking about the Save the World mode and how overwhelming it was, and it took a couple hours to kind of really wrap their heads around it. Do you feel like you're getting a sense of, do you feel like you're using it to train for the world's most popular game, or do you feel like you're enjoying it as it is its own thing?
A little bit of both, right? So I feel like the training aspect of it is not the training aspect of it kind of expires after the first couple of hours, right? Because it's really just, like I said, getting that exposure to systems. But like if you went into PvP and didn't understand like the basics of how to build, then that would be bad. But I enjoy it as its own thing, and like I said, more and more people are playing. It's neat. So unfortunately, this weekend in PvE, I didn't spend any time on voice comms. I live streamed a lot of it to Facebook. So the headset that I had on was actually connected over to my streaming PC for voiceover commentary. But it's still, even without the voice, right? It's still kind of in Destiny fashion. It's nice when somebody just joins up in your game, right? And you're the commander and you get to build the structures and stuff. Unless you have a constructor in your squad, and then just play that and play that co-op, right? It's a pretty awesome experience, and once you get a chunk of the missions under your belt, then you can kind of approach them all randomly. You don't necessarily have to do them in progression, and people will jump in because they like playing the missions. So and again, that the progression model in PvE is definitely more specific, personal, and complex than it is in PvP. Like I said, I didn't spend a ton of time in PvP trying to figure that out. It may very well be all cosmetics. I just know that there are like 26 or 27 tiers of
with the battle pass, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we could spend more time talking about the battle pass. I think maybe even that whole idea of battle passes, whether it's Paladins or Fortnite or PUBG, I'm curious to spin that out into a topic discussion at some point in time in terms of alternative revenue streams for free-to-play games.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you and I both played a little bit of Red Faction Guerrilla Remastered. So
yeah.
I almost hate to bring that up while Prime is away from his mic, but I don't know that he's going to get back.
We can save it, and if he doesn't get back, we'll go there. So I'll give you one other game that I was playing, and am glad that I sent it back to GameFly, and so that is The Crew 2. So I had played the closed beta, and we talked about it on this podcast. I really enjoyed some of the mechanics. I really struggled. I remember talking about it in our chat, really struggling with some of the races and the wayfinding in terms of navigating streets and figuring out where to go. Sometimes things were clearly marked, sometimes things were not, and the one little slip up and the AI was way ahead of you, and you had no chance of, or at least I had no chance of coming back. And so that was the closed beta, and I thought, okay, well, they're going to tweak the AI, that this is something that they can do. I don't know that they tweaked it. Playing the races, it's still it was still very rubber bandy. It didn't seem to change a whole lot from the closed beta to now. Going on Reddit and reading about it, it certainly seems like I'm not alone in complaining or having concerns about the rubber band AI and how it's tweaked. So it made kind of street races not enjoyable at all. I guess is the honest answer. Like the outdoor races were more fun because the terrain was a little more open, so you had a little more flexibility. Part of the fun in that open world goofiness that I didn't get to do in Mafia 3 is to just kind of cruise around and explore and, fly a plane over the Rockies and up to the northern, find Minneapolis and then fly down and see that Chicago takes up half of the Midwest. And, right. So
you answered part of my question. I guess I was going to ask, so what was the path to getting beyond the cars?
Really straightforward. I mean, so they open it up. So unlike as Prime told us, the Crew 1, it has a revenge story in it. This one is very much you want to gain followers. And so you're a young up-and-coming influencer is even the word that they use, and you're trying to gain followers.
So it's Instagram the game.
Yeah, kind of. Yep. Except they don't even use they could lean into it more fully and kind of go with their own fake social media stuff a little bit more than they do. But again, it opens up relatively quickly. You get one street race, and then you populate the map with, you have intro races for each of your different vehicle types. So you got trick planes and boats and outdoor vehicles, and then a couple more street races. And so as you rank up, you'll unlock more things on the map. The map is really slick and smooth, and you can physically drive there, or virtually, I guess, technically, in the world, or you can just kind of quick launch it and pull it up. It zooms out from where you're at. You select it, you zoom into where it is, and you load in. And so it really makes it seamless to start playing around, right? So playing it with my son, he's flying over DC. I could see that, the fun part is the fun you make. I don't know that the game that they created was what I found fun at all.
So what was it about the game? And maybe you did say it specifically. What was it about give me the one reason that it caused you to send it back?
The one reason is that it wasn't drastically. That's car physics, I guess, is the big one, right? That it's not simmy enough, and it's not burnouty enough. And if the car physics and the AI, the whole street racing aspect of it. So the cars are fun, but they weren't tuned to be as casual. But they're not quite high performance kind of simulation either. And the fact that they kind of straddle that line would be fine if the races were fun. If I'm playing Gran Turismo or Forza, I know where I'm going. I have a sense of it. Here I don't see that as much. And maybe I got too dependent on the wayfinding arrows from other games. But that and the rubber band AI, I think, is the pieces, and that potentially gets patched and cleans up. It's something I definitely. All that said, it's a game that come this holiday season, when it goes on sale for super cheap, I'm gonna look at kind of getting back into, because it was fun to just kind of explore and try to get points for tricks and do other types of things. So that aspect of it, I enjoyed, but not at a $60 point. And so there's my rationale for sending it back. So that's my on again, off again interest in the crew. But you were playing a different crew game, right? You had some VR with Star Trek Bridge Crew.
Yeah, and just one quick note before I step over to talk about that. If I see if I can remember how to do this. I haven't done this in a very long time. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, so are you able to see the screen here? Oh, you're muted. You can see it. Okay, so I did also want to mention that one of the major things that I did while playing Fortnite was spend an extensive amount of time testing the latest gaming keyboard from Corsair, the K70 RGB Mark II. Corsair has come out with two of these. It's the RGB Mark II, as well as the Corsair Strafe. And the key difference between the two of them is the deck. So this outer housing that the keys rest on in the K70 is metal, whereas on the Strafe it is plastic. They are both, however, very heavy and durable keyboards. The weird thing about these is they're advertised as being mechanical, but having soft keys, which to me was kind of weird, because to me the whole reason I use a mechanical keyboard is because I love that loud click-clacky you get when you use it. But actually, quite honestly, they are a joy to use. I was really impressed by the K70 this weekend while playing Fortnite. In fact, to the point where I actually played it in WASD mode, which I think, as you guys know, I never use WASD. I always use like the keypad or hook up a specialized gaming keyboard. But and then they have a whole lighting scheme which you can use with IQ, which Swissguard and I talked a little bit about. But yeah, Gray, our former erstwhile leader, during our casual adult gamer days, and we do a VR show every Sunday night, and he and I have been playing Star Trek Bridge Crew for the last couple of nights. Pluses and minuses this time. One of the things that frustrated me during the session is I have a Windows mixed reality headset. He uses Oculus Rift. The Windows mixed reality headsets have like a little touch-sensitive circular control pads on the top of each controller. That is how you access switching seats on the bridge. There are 4 seats. So that this weekend combat was as hot and heavy as it has ever gotten when we've been playing. And the WMR headsets just struggle. There's a very small touch point where you're supposed to click to swap seats, and I found that very difficult to find, particularly in the heat of battle. So I got really frustrated. But other than that, the difference we made this week is the first week I spent the whole time as captain. This week we split it up. But the first week we played, when I was the captain, I literally tried to sit in the captain seat the whole time and just order crew members to take certain actions. He wanted this time for us to directly switch into those positions. So again, when we entered combat against numerous Klingon birds of prey, we were frequently outnumbered. And so I wound up basically taking the right-hand side of the bridge, which puts you in engineering and tactical, which are the two busiest sections when you're under attack, because engineering controls shields, repair crews, and power allocation, and tactical actually fights the battle. So I was actually quite happy with my own personal performance under that duress. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. My biggest concern with Star Trek Bridge Crew is I hope that they add more content. It's a fairly short single-player campaign. I don't know if there's multiplayer or like what the end game is once you clear that. I really hope it's a game. What would make Star Trek Bridge Crew the pinnacle Star Trek game is if they added more ships, more bridges, more ship classes. To me, it's really like all these efforts to make Star Trek Online should really just be Star Trek Bridge Crew. So I'm just hoping that they deliver more content.
So how often have you guys played? Because this is a game that, as a VR fan and a Star Trek fan, I've always been interested in, but I've never been sure that it's a single player experience. I mean, do you need a crew to play with?
It maximizes in that multiplayer experience with a crew. I think you could play single player. Yeah, I mean, again, if you had like, I wouldn't play single player with my Windows Mixed Reality headset because it would all be on me. What I haven't done yet, and I need to try this, is I haven't tried playing with an Xbox controller, but I believe with a controller with complete fluidity of jumping around the bridge, that you could absolutely play it. I don't know what I don't know, because Gray has always been in the helmsman seat, so it's not clear to me what orders you're able to give him and how succinct those are in having that person maneuver the ship. That would be my only concern.
And so this is also, it's not only in VR now, right? You can also, people can be playing this in regular gaming modes as well.
Yeah. So, and incidentally, we really need you one of these times, because we're definitely hitting missions. The last mission that we played, which may have been like the third mission, we're definitely hitting missions now where it just overwhelms a team of two. Like it's at the point where you need to have a team of three, if not four.
Well, then if I can play it, without PC VR mode, I could join in. And so here's what's going to get me to join is
but it's cross play, so you can play from Sony VR.
Oh, really?
From PlayStation
I didn't
VR.
realize that it was cross play. Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we targeted the game specifically, was so that we could get all of us into play.
Okay. So here's what's going to get me is the DLC that's coming is Star Trek Bridge Crew: The Next Generation. So it's got a whole set of new missions, new ships, all in TNG.
Oh man! So they're actually doing what I just
yes. Yep. They did an announcement back in May that it was coming.
Okay.
Or actually, I think it might even be out now. I'm looking to see.
Okay.
But yes, I think it is out now. So
okay.
They did. So it's there. I don't know what it costs and how expansive it is, but that was something I remember seeing that sparked my interest. So
I don't care how much it costs. In a world where people are throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars at stinking Star Citizen, like I'll definitely get $30.
You can play some Bridge Crew. Yeah, exactly. There's a game that really exists, and you don't have to invest a small mortgage or even a large mortgage for.
I wish the last two times and I'm still struggling to come up with a decent recording configuration to like each time I get like one piece of it, but I get video every single time, but I get my performance getting audio captured has been poor. So last time I got my voice. You can barely hear Gray and the in-game audio. So I think maybe I've got it, but I need to monkey around with the audio mix. My whole point in this being I wish I could get video up so you could see and hear like how much fun we're having playing it.
Fun. Yeah, nice. Well, I've been playing a little bit of VR as well, and I had a blast with it. Playing 2MD, 2-minute drill. So it is a virtual reality football game, but it is almost like a little mini game. So you're the quarterback, and your team is blocking dummies and your opponents are blocking dummies. So it doesn't have to really animate a whole lot. But you've got a series of 4 plays that you run. It's almost very Tecmo Bowl-y, where you've got 4 plays and you can kind of read your defense and figure out what you're going to do. You can go back to the locker room and draw up plays on the board. You can audible and change your plays, and you're drawing out routes. But then once you hike the ball, you are physically throwing, and it's a pretty good workout, and 2, it mirrors throwing the ball really well. And that's what I loved, like playing it with my son, and both of us are just laughing and like, oh, I totally, because it's not Wii motion control waggling to throw the ball. You really got to follow through. You know, if you release too high, you're going to overshoot it. If you follow through too quickly, you're going to spike it down into the ground. And so, you know, it forces you to kind of think about how you'd be throwing it physically. And so it's been fun. I picked it up for like $10, you know, but it's been, again, one of the things that I love about VR is there are experiences that I can't get in some other type of game. And, you know, just like Bridge Crew, just like that this is not, you know, I could be looking at a menu and clicking something in Bridge Crew, but it's different when you're playing it there physically. So, and it's also nice when you're here physically. So welcome back, Osiris Prime. We've been churning through our list of games. So before we get to your assignment, anything that you've been playing that you want to call out?
Well, and I definitely, probably before you go, because there's risk that you may have to jump off again. So I definitely want to get you to talk through Red Faction Guerrilla, since that's one that we've all played a little bit of. And then if you could talk also a little bit about your Fortnite experiences on Switch.
Okay. So yeah, so I was jumped in on Red Faction Guerrilla again, and I did actually a couple of streams on it. Which I have to put up at least the first one. But yeah, I mean, graphically, it actually looks pretty good. I was kind of surprised. I thought it would just kind of be like a minor graphical thing, but it actually looks pretty good for what it is. Obviously, it's what 7-8-year-old game or something like that.
9 years old, 2009. If I'm not
it's almost 10 years old. So yeah, it's getting down there. But you know, stories, you know, it is what it is. Nothing, you know, super.
Little campy.
Yeah. Once again, a revenge story. There's a lot of those, I guess. But I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's more about, you know, going from mission to mission or quest to quest that you want to do side quests where you just, you know, destroy buildings and destroy whole little, not really towns, I guess, like kind of small towns, I suppose, later on in the game, from what I remember on the 360. But yeah, I mean, I just jumped right back into it. I got, you know, right back into it. I didn't have any problems with controls or anything like that. A little bit, just because I've been kind of switching back from the Switch and, you know, Xbox controls, how they have the button switch. So that screwed me up. But otherwise,
yeah, it was a little jarring to me because I had forgotten. Now I definitely remember that one of the reasons I stayed off of this game when it came to console was because I was miffed because it jumped from first person, which is what it was on PC,
right,
and it jumped to third person. And so when it came up, and I'm playing on PC, so when it came up, I was like, what is this third person? So, but it plays really well. The difference, the delta in the destruction engine from the first one to the second one is nothing short of amazing.
Yes.
And I think I'm trying to remember. So this game would have also come out before Battlefield 2 before Battlefield Bad Company, I think. And I didn't think Battlefield Bad Company's destruction engine was nearly as impressive as this one. It's pretty amazing. And the remaster looks great.
Yeah.
DB, any coincident points from what you saw based on what Prime said?
No, I think the thing that surprised me was the controls. I had never played it before. I'd played Saints Row 3, 4, so I was prepared for the third-person kind of action. I loved the destructibility, and it really holds up. I think that was a surprising thing for almost a 10-year-old game, that it, you know, playing around in that world, right, really, really holds up. The part that I had to spend some time adjusting, because it is 2018, is the clicking the stick in to aim down sights versus left trigger, right? That some of those mechanics were not necessarily settled on back then, you know, all of 9 years ago. Oh my gosh, right? But I think that was the one control piece that took a little bit of adjusting. Otherwise, it plays like any other game today. I mean, it still feels very modern.
Yeah, the driving's a little wonky, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's Grand Theft Auto wonky.
Right? Yeah, right. I mean,
it doesn't seem to turn as snappy as other games.
Yeah.
Like you kind of have to, like, you know.
No, I mean, for me, I mean, it plays. Having played Agents of Mayhem, which was Volition's most recent one, you know, the driving hasn't changed a whole lot in those 10 years.
Bad Company was 2008, by the way, June 23rd, 2008.
Okay, all right.
The first one. So it was about a year later that Guerrilla came out.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess obviously Red Faction, the first one, had already been out with the destruction engine that I felt was better than
the original. Yeah.
So one thing I'll mention that's specific to PC, just because I wanted to put it out there, and it's weird because I've picked up 2 games that all dropped this month on PC. Both of them do the same thing. For some reason, the maximum resolution that both of them have implemented is 2560 by 1440, which is less than 4K, which I don't really understand. And I don't understand if there's this walk back for PC games now stepping back away from 4K because maybe there's a feeling that there aren't enough people with cards out there to handle it. I also wonder if it's something specific to Unreal Engine 4, because I think both of these games, I think Remastered's in well, at least Earthfall is in Unreal Engine 4. I thought Remastered may have been as well. I could be wrong. But that was just an interesting thing of note because it was jarring to me when it topped out and I couldn't go past 2560 by 1440. So Prime, talk to us about Fortnite on Switch, and let's see if you and I cover any common ground from my experience in Fortnite over the weekend.
So before I go into that real quick, did anybody try the multiplayer on Red Faction Guerrilla? No.
Nah, I didn't.
I tried a couple times. First time I couldn't find a game. The second time I actually did find one game. I played, I think, maybe 2 games, but just as fun as it was when I first played it. I thought super underrated, but that was just me. But yep. So Fortnite, yes. I was listening on a little bit while you guys were talking before, and I played it. I played it on Xbox One, Fortnite. Now, obviously, I'm playing it on the Switch now, and after this last update for Season 5, I believe it is now, that graphics actually seem a little better. I don't know if it's just me, or I'm still playing it in handheld mode, so I haven't played it a lot on docked when I have docked, but it does seem like it's a little bit crisper, maybe a little bit brighter even. But yeah, I'm still enjoying it. I actually got a win again, I think this past weekend or like a week and a half ago, maybe. Yeah, I know you said you jumped in the I don't want to say single player, but the story zombie mode, I guess, beforehand. I wish I had done that because I still can't get used to the building part of it. I can't comprehend it for some reason. You know, I see these people, and it is. I think it's cross-platform, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, with at least the PC.
Yeah, there's 2. I don't know if they're options. I just know there are 2 settings that appear on my screen when I'm playing on PC, and it's like it's a different bit, right? That said, it's one is who you can be in squad with, which I think they want you on the same platform for people you're in squad with, but then it says can play against, and that always says cross-platform for me.
Okay.
But I think the weird thing about building that I discovered was that people use it as shields.
Yeah.
And there's just rapid throwing up of walls and staircases and stuff whenever somebody comes under fire, which it's a thing, you know.
That's what kind of turned me off of it on the Xbox originally, but I don't know. I guess because I have it on the Switch now and I can play a little bit more. I'm getting used to it. Obviously it's a certain tactic. You can actually use trees and rocks and stuff too. I mean, that was always a thing, I suppose, in games.
So tell me what building is, because I was just talking to DB before you came on, right? So when I played on this thing, I mentioned that I played Fortnite in WASD, which I never play shooters in WASD. I think one of the reasons I did, and I was comfortable and I enjoyed it and I stuck with it, was because it gave me access to far more keys than I usually the reason I play on keypad is because I don't want all that clutter of keys around the ones I'm actually using. But in this case, they were very effective for giving me extra keys within reach for building. I can't imagine what pain you guys are suffering playing this on consoles. How do you build on a console with a game controller?
Yeah, you got to press A, and then it brings up the build menu, and then you could switch. Then you use like the right and left, or left and right shoulder buttons to switch between the different shapes. Basically.
Wait, so it's a 2 deep drill down? Like you got to bring up like a sub menu?
Yep. So it's A, and then you can go back and forth between the shapes.
Oh,
I just hit A again to get out of it.
I literally just threw up in my mouth a little. Like that's completely like I feel for you because on PC what you do is you hit. I mean you hit F1 through F4. That selects what type of structure you're going to build, and then you just hit. I think I have my map the Q key, and then you just drop it. So, but I mean, but those are keys you can hit in rapid succession or concurrently. It's not like you have to drill down one level into a submit. Yeah,
it's not too bad because I usually just leave it on the ramp, so I could just hit A and just build around myself. So it's not too bad. But obviously, I've seen people like do like a 3-story building in like 5 seconds because they can just like go around in circle,
right.
And that's switching between the ramp and the walls and the flat plane. It's just. There's no way. I don't even know if I could do that on a PC on a keyboard. It's just so fast. They do it so fast. So
right.
It's just muscle memory, I suppose.
So I apologize that we're so pressed for time tonight. But are you cool if we get onto your Playz picks, or did you have other things that you've been playing that you want to talk about?
Just real quick with PUBG, I've been actually playing on the test server recently. They spun it back up. They've actually improved the graphics, and they added some weapons and stuff, but the graphics look way better, the lighting and stuff like that. And they actually, I believe, just today they had thrown that update to the production environment. So I'm going to be hopefully testing that out in the next week also.
So do they actually reference it as prod?
No. Yeah, they do say prod.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking is, so you're conscious that it's a difference between test and production, but like, is that like a general part of the lingo for PUBG players?
Yeah, because it's like on the Xbox, it's a whole separate download and thing you have to go into. It's just not in the main game, so it's 2 different things. I'll actually separate it out.
Someday I will deride that game for the fact that in order to play it, regular human beings have had to become aware of the difference between test and prod.
I know.
Little redonk. So let's pick some games for you, man. So you can talk us through your 3 options that you've presented for us.
Yes. So this time, I finally got some Nintendo picks, but a little different. So not only am I going to pick Nintendo games, but Nintendo consoles. So we're going with the NES Classic, SNES Classic, and I threw the GameCube in there just because I have that lying around and easy to hook up. So I picked a couple of games for each system. So the NES Mini Classic, we have Final Fantasy Gradius, however you want to say it. SNES, we have Kirby Superstar and Earthbound. In GameCube, we have Simpsons Hit and Run and Tony Hawk American Wasteland. Thought I'd be a little different this time around and give you some console choices to throw in there.
So DBQ, I'll let you break the news to him because I already know how this math is going to come out.
Oh, you do? You have okay. I have Swiss's pick as well. So
yeah.
Okay. So my pick is, as much as I want to give you a reason to play the NES Classic, which I have sitting in a box at home. After spending most of this episode talking about open world games with Mafia 3 and with Red Faction Guerrilla, I want to see how Simpsons Hit and Run still plays. So I'm curious on the lunchbox on the GameCube. So there's my pick for you.
Carried anywhere.
It's got a handle.
That's right, it's got a handle.
So did Swiss give you his rationale for also picking the GameCube games?
No. Did he give you one? Did you get a rationale?
I don't remember. So you're gonna play GameCube. You're gonna play Simpsons Hit and Run and Tony Hawk American Wasteland. I am personally, just because I'm interested in Tony Hawk American Wasteland. But I will also say, just so everybody's aware, and any of the other 3 co-hosts who join with me in this alliance, I will just let you know, if you bring to the Playz Picks arena these mini retro consoles, they will get slapped away from the net every time. I'm glad we have them. I'm glad we can participate in them. I'm not interested in seeing you guys assigned to play those. That's just me. I have a retro console too, and it occupies like 5 minutes of my time. Like there's too many other 21st century games to play. I'm sorry. Go ahead, DB.
No, I was just I'm gonna give us an uplifting note from from Swiss about why he chose the GameCube. Quote, "Love that little guy." So there we go. So not only are you getting the other one slapped away, but Swiss just wants to show some love to his purple little lunchbox.
Well, let me just say this before you say anything. I fooled you all because I wanted the GameCube in all 3 of these picks. That was my choice. That's the one I really want to play because I really love the Simpsons Hit and Run.
So you put up 2 lame ducks that you knew weren't going to
That's right.
work anyway. So.
I've never played any of the other 2 or the other 4 games.
I was kind of curious on the rationale for Gradius and Earthbound. Like, really? You're gonna spend that much time in him? Like,
actually,
okay.
I think I might have played a Gradius, one of them, because I think there's sequels to those.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I've never. Yeah, it probably only spent like a day or something on it.
We will be curious to hear back from you.
Yes.
Well, that was a little risky play because that would have been, I mean, my number 2 pick would have been Gradius just for the nostalgia and the throwback.
Nice.
So I know we're going over time. I do want to take like 2 minutes, if it's okay with you guys, to really quickly talk about Earthfall, just because it's a brand new game.
Sure.
All right, so very quickly. So Earthfall, available on PC, available on Steam. It might be available on consoles. I didn't even notice. It's very much Left 4 Dead like.
It's on
game.
consoles as well.
Okay, cool. So a lot of people have been deriding it and calling it a clone. I'm going to say I feel the way about this, and I feel when a lot of, many aspects of this topic come up, it's only a clone for you as an individual if that matters and if it's close enough to you. Left 4 Dead, when did Left 4 Dead come out, DB?
Oh, 2008?
Okay, so it's been 10 years, right? So who cares if another game, and then Left 4 Dead 2 was 2009. It was the next year. So who really cares if it's a game that's similar to 2 games that came out 9 or 10 years ago, right? That seems to me to be a silly knock. It is a visual and graphical upgrade. It is more complex in terms of vectors of attack and vectors of defense. You have barricades that you could... Now, none of this makes sense. It doesn't make any sense why there would be auto-deploying barricades lying around a wasteland after aliens invade, but fine, right?
You could Fortnite it, basically.
Yeah. Well, the barricades come out and they erect in a single vertical plane. You can stack them and arrange them and position them around. They allow your players to walk. They slide open like Star Trek doors when you or other players approach them, and then they snap closed after you pass through. You can shoot through them, which is great and particularly effective. There are the other thing is there's lots of different weapons, unlike Left 4 Dead. Like Left 4 Dead, you just had the pistol, the shotgun, the sniper rifle, and the M16. This one has probably about 12 to maybe 20 weapons. You have different variations of shotgun. You can dual wield pistols. For some reason, first-person shooters have taken this great umbrage to the notion of dual wielding. I don't understand it, but you can dual wield pistols. And it's the same kind of map setup that you have in Left 4 Dead. It's a campaign and it's laid out and you can see how you're supposed to progress through it linearly, but you pick one mission at a time. So it's not like you're locked into a specified progression path forward. It can be very challenging. The aliens attack. They use the verticality. So in one mission, in like a big storage area, so kind of like one of these things where you go and you rent a storage unit and you put your stuff in there for, while you're moving houses or whatever. Aliens came off of the roof. When I traversed to the roof in an effort to try and take the high ground, I turned around to find like 12 aliens that had come up onto the roof with me. You can grab propane tanks, throw them, and explode the propane tanks. So there are automated gun turrets, but there are also manned gun turrets. So you can throw a gun turret down. It's a larger caliber weapon, but you have to stand there and do it. Again, it is very much a clone when you talk about the types of enemies. So, just like the game, there's a type of enemy that blows up and explodes goo all over you. There is a beast which is similar to the Left 4 Dead tank, who is very hard to take down. A cooler thing is when you're bleeding out in this game, you're bleeding out. You can still fire your pistol, and so it's kind of like a last chance thing, kind of like in Borderlands. And you can reload your pistol. You cannot fire any other type of weapon is the bad thing. And I did have several. And if a teammate is trying to heal you while you're down on the ground, you can cover them by sitting there and firing your pistol. So I had a great time playing the game. And we'll talk about it another day. But I also used that opportunity to test the Windows 10 game DVR functionality that's embedded right in Windows 10 to live stream to Mixer. I was very impressed. I was amazed. It's been there since Windows 8, and I've always ignored it because I've seen it, and I've been like, it's made by Microsoft and it's Windows. It couldn't possibly be good, but it actually is. Minus one little non-intuitive setting which blows the whole thing up. But once you figure that out, it works great. So that's all I wanted to add. Anything else from you gentlemen for tonight?
I just want to say No Man's Sky is coming out next Tuesday. I will be hopefully playing that night.
So somebody's getting excited.
I am, especially after the announced what was the update or the new update that's coming out the next.
Yeah, just today they announced some of that stuff.
I've got to check and see if you can. I'm hoping on PC you can use a joystick.
Oh, for the flight?
Yeah.
I know. I already know how you are with the flight with Star Wars. We're trying to do Star Wars. Couldn't do it.
Yeah. That was too much of a paradigm shift. So, DBQ, anything from you?
No, not tonight. Good show tonight, guys. Good discussion. Thanks for coming back, Prime. Sorry you had to jump out, but I'm glad to have you back.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks very much, everyone. On behalf of the E2KG Network, DBqHams and Osiris Prime, I am Agasicles from GearWorks.com and the E2KG Network. Thanks so much for joining in for your weekly games discussion and experience show. We will be back next week, as always. And also, please catch our weekly news and discussion show, essentially kind of like Donahue. For any of you who are alive and know who Donahue was, but probably a bunch of you don't. We're kind of like...
Go way back.
It doesn't work so much if we say we're the Oprah of video game podcasts. But look, we run down 6 of the biggest news stories in the games industry from the preceding week, and then pick 3 of them or an associated adjacent topic and go into a deep dive discussion about that. So joining on that show, it's a new format. It's longer than E2KG in 30, but I think it's more informative, and we think it's more interesting to take a listen to. So those are always available on YouTube, and if you want to listen to the audio versions and listen to them while you're doing your morning commute, you can also pull them down from the E2KG Network channel on SoundCloud. Thanks again. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.